A question you guys often ask, is this speaker good for both music and movies? As if a loudspeaker only knows how to do one or the other. The real question becomes is just how good is a loudspeaker at servicing all types of content? Well, that's what we're going to look at today as we review the Focal Chora 826D, so sit back, relax, hit that like button and subscribe, and let's jump into it. The Focal Chora 826D is a Dolby Atmos enabled tower speaker that is based on the Focal Chora 826. The 826 and 826D are virtually identical. They have the same forward-facing drivers, the same specs, even the same finishes. What separates these two models is that Dolby Atmos speaker up top, which is a big deal for home theater enthusiasts. And the Atmos is delivered via an internal 5-inch full-range upward-firing driver. As for the rest of the speaker, it is a 3-way bass reflex tower speaker that utilizes a 1-inch inverted dome tweeter, a 6.5-inch mid-range driver, and two 6.5-inch woofers. The speaker itself has a reported frequency response of 48 Hz to 28 kilohertz with a sensitivity of 91 dB into 8 ohms. Now the speaker itself is fairly benign, but it can dip as low as 2.9 ohms when pushed. And that Atmos driver has a frequency response of 100 Hz to 20 kilohertz with a sensitivity of 91 dB into 6 ohms. Now the speaker is front ported, which should make placement easier, comes with magnetic grills, and is entirely made in France. We paired the 826D with the matching chorus center and sub 600-piece subwoofer. For surround sound duties, you could rely on the Chora 806 bookshelf speakers, which we've already reviewed on this channel, or you could use the wall-mountable Chora surrounds. Before I dive into the 826D's sound, know that we power these speakers with a wide range of electronics, ranging from our name Unity Atom, the Yamaha AS3200, even the Technics R1000. Yes, I can confirm that review is coming. For home theater use, we relied on our Yamaha V6A receiver, as well as the newly announced Emotiva Bass X amplifiers, which I connected to a recently discontinued MC700 processor. Let's start with music, because I find with home theater reviews, the number one thing you ask afterwards is how do the speakers sound with music? And as you might expect with the 826D being based off the Chora 826, they did very well. In fact, the 826D sounds like a grown-up, almost full-range 806, which is a very good thing. Focal's signature sound is alive and well with the 826D, favoring detail, separation, and speed. They're not entirely neutral. There's definitely a house curve with these particular speakers, but don't be surprised if you come away from a listening session thinking that you have heard things in a recording that other speakers have glossed over, because these speakers are incredibly resolute in the upper mid-range and treble, and as a result can come across ever so slightly lean or forward, but never in your face or worse, fatiguing. As for the mid-range, that portion of the frequency response where vocals lie, it's very articulate, but not too weighty. This is not a loudspeaker that I would classify as lush or warm. Instead, the 826D aims for neutrality, but maybe comes off as just a bit lean on its own. Still, vocals and instruments have great detail and nuance. Seriously, it's one of the speaker's best traits, but it may sound just a little bit light compared to, say, a Klipsch 8000F or B&W. And as for the bass, it is all about that speed and point of impact. Now, Focal claims bass extension all the way down to 39 Hz, which is better than the reported 48, but without even looking at the specs, I can tell the 826D's bass is just a little bit light. Honestly, it was deep enough for me when listening to music, but I will admit I have heard deeper from comparable loudspeakers. Nevertheless, I just loved how responsive this speaker was. The point of impact of a kick drum or double bass just hits differently with this speaker. So if you like speed and detail in the bass and upper mid-bass region, I can think of few speakers that do it better than the 826D. While improvements could be had in terms of bass extension, super expensive electronics were not required to get the most out of this particular speaker. Stepping up from our Yamaha V6A to the relatively inexpensive Bass X amplifiers did add a few pounds to the 826D's bass extension without costing any of the loudspeaker its clarity. But going for broke with the R1000 integrated amplifier didn't really add any more oomph, but it did open the speakers up quite a bit spatially. Soundstage with the 826D is just incredible. Like the 806 bookshelf speakers, Focal has proven once again to have imaging on lock. It is so good, in fact, that I have gotten up from my chair to make sure the Focal Chora center wasn't on. That's how good the center imaging is with these speakers. Soundstage width and depth both are good, but the 826D does appear to favor width over depth, but the speakers just disappear completely within the soundstage and become very difficult to locate when they do. For a truly holographic experience, I highly recommend playing the track Seville from the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack. Play that track through these speakers and prepare to have your minds blown. Switching gears to movies, I'm sure a lot of you want to know how do those Atmos speakers perform, but before I do that, let me break from the 826D for just a moment to talk about the Chora Center and sub 600p. For starters, the Chora Center is large and in charge. Its sheer girth reminds me a lot of the Klipsch RP600C. And I love a big center channel. I find compact centers to constrict the voices of my favorite actors. This doesn't happen with the Chora Center, though its relative neutrality does make it mildly susceptible to voicing through your associated equipment. Still, it matches the tone, the scale, and dynamics of the 826D, so I consider it a must-have if you're looking to build a home theater around this series. As for the sub 600p, I think it's gorgeous. It is one of the better designed subwoofers that I can recall, but that said, it is not a full range sub. It extends only down to 28 Hz, which means that certain sounds or sound effects simply aren't going to be audible. Michael Bay is the type of director that likes to use a lot of ultra-low frequency sound effects in his movies. Two prime examples of this are Six Underground on Netflix, as well as Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Now, there are sequences in this film that simply are not played back properly through the 600p, or when they are attempted, they just sound kind of bleh. Now, for music, I love how the 600p blended beautifully with the 826D, but there are better subwoofers on the market that do more than the 600p for less. And as for the built-in Atmos speakers, they work and work pretty well. I may not have been the biggest fan of Godzilla vs. Kong, but I will admit the film sounded pretty damn epic. And one of the aspects of the mix that I paid attention to very closely was just how well it used those Atmos channels built into the 826D, and I was not disappointed. Our ceilings fall within the recommended height for upward firing Atmos speakers, and their presence had a real notable effect. Now, those of you with higher ceilings or vaulted ceilings may end up with a different experience, but if your ceilings rest between, say, 8 and 12 feet, I think you're going to find that the upward firing drivers inside the 826D really add a lot of dimension to blockbuster films. The built-in Atmos speakers extend the 826D's soundstage to almost 180 degrees, coming right up into your seated position. Now, I could have added surround speakers that would have completely enveloped Kristi and myself, but I didn't really feel the need to, because the 3.1.2 setup that you're seeing here was so good. So if you're tight on space but still want to go big, this system is pretty ideal. In terms of drawbacks, I only have a few, but I understand that many of them are going to be subjective. Starting with the grills, I don't like them. They're pretty weak in terms of their hold, and I wish that they were recessed rather than just protruding out there. I also don't like the gloss plastic surrounds that surround every driver. It's an even bigger issue for me when you get up close and realize that they don't sit completely flush with the speaker's matte front baffle. Also, I think Focal needs to come to market with an 806D in order to be competitive, if for no other reason than to allow customers the ability to build a 5.1.4 or 7.1.4 setup inside this series. At around $2,800 a pair, the Focal 826D faces some pretty stiff competition. Upon unboxing the Focal, which props to Focal for the stylish and well-made packaging, I immediately thought of the Klipsch 8000F, which retails for $1,400 a pair. Now, both speakers are relatively close in being the same size. They both have that upward tilt, and I think in the end they're going to appeal to the same type of customer. But the Klipsch absolutely monsters the Focal in the bass department without giving up too much with respect to detail. That said, the Focal is the more articulate speaker, but because of the 8000F's bass prowess, it's a little bit more balanced top to bottom. Both speakers are fantastic at home theater, and I don't have to tell you, they're also good at music. Now, if you're asking yourself, well, Andrew, the 8000F doesn't have a built-in Atmos speaker, you're right. But the Klipsch 8060 FA does, and at a little over $2,500 a pair, it's also cheaper than the Focal. Now, I have not heard the 8060 FA, but on paper, it appears to be an 8000F with a 600M resting up top, which should make for a pretty compelling combination. While I think the Klipsch comparison is valid, the A26D is more likely to be cross-shopped against the likes of the Bowers & Wilkins 703 and 704 S2 speakers or the Monitor Audio 500. Now, I think that the Chora comes out ahead here in terms of bang for your buck if you're a home theater enthusiast, because at present, Bowers & Wilkins does not offer an all-in-one Dolby Atmos enabled loudspeaker, and the Monitor Audio 500 can do Atmos with an optional Atmos loudspeaker, but sadly it doesn't match the look of the silver line. In terms of sound quality, I think you're going to find the A26D to sit right in the middle of these two brands. A little bit more neutral than the B&W, but not quite as punchy as Monitor Audio. You're probably wondering by now, how does the A26D compare to the KLH Model 5 we just raved about? Well, I can tell you that both speakers image like champions, have great center focus, have amazing detail, and that sort of in-room presence you know I love. But the Model 5 is just a little bit better balanced. It has a little bit more low-end control and grip compared to the Focal. And when it comes to non-Atmos movies, these two speakers are very evenly matched, with maybe the win going to the Model 5. But with Atmos content, the A26D is the clear winner in this head-to-head. Is the Focal Chora A26D good at both music and movies? Yes. While those of you not interested in home theater will likely be better served by the less expensive Chora 826, those of you with systems that have to pull double duty, the 826D is one of the best examples of a do-it-all loudspeaker that I can think of. So that's it. That is my review of the Focal Chora 826D tower loudspeaker. Now, what does Kristi think?
Well, I can just keep this pretty short and sweet. Okay. I mean, I think they're great speakers. I agree with everything you said in the review. You know, my only complaint is style-wise. Like you, I don't like the that glossy finish that surrounds the drivers.
Yeah.
To me, it from a distance, it looks like, you know, the frisket that comes on a TV or whatnot. Like, it looks like that needs to. Looks like you still gotta, like you forgot to take it off.
That's fair. That's fair.
And I don't know. I really, really wish companies would just start embracing a more matte look to their designs. The glossy stuff just doesn't do it for me.
Okay.
But other than that, I think they're a really good pair of speakers. And for home theater, I thought the experience was really, really good.
Yeah.
I try not to think too much about price when it comes to what comes in the house for review, but I will admit, once you told me how much they were, I was a little surprised. I kind of thought they were a little less expensive. So,
what made you think they were a little less expensive? Was it their look and finish, or was it their sound quality?
The look and finish.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's they're finished very nice. They have a nice design, but I will admit that you can see the more budget aspects, I think, of the finish with these speakers. But okay. But it wasn't the sound quality.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Just from a completely subjective.
Gotcha.
I'm judging you by how you look. Although, like you said, the packaging is
oh my god,
top notch. I mean, they really, really thought about their branding, which I'm sorry, there's a ton of people, or not people, but brands that just leave that as a total afterthought. I mean, sometimes you're lucky if it even shows up in one piece. The packaging is so horrible.
Yeah.
But here, I mean, you know, when you think about the price, it should have been.
But that factors into it. That does. Believe it or not, as someone that has had some experience around manufacturing, the reason why packaging is such an afterthought is a lot of companies don't budget for it. They really don't. And so the fact that these arrive in boxes that I am not ashamed to say that if you buy these speakers, you will keep because they're reusable. Most stuff gets there just intact enough for you to open it up and watch the box and all the foam disintegrate. That is not the case here. And so I kind of want to send some of these boxes to a couple of key companies of products we've reviewed lately going, this is the standard. This is the benchmark, because I agree. Not only did everything arrive completely intact, all of the packing material was completely reusable. And I mean, it went back together to send these back to Focal. It went back together brilliantly. And that's just not the case with 90% of the loudspeakers that were sent to us for review.
Right.
It's amazing. They did it. Kudos on that.
Yeah, it was really, really well done. And maybe that's where some of the added cost is going.
Yeah.
Which until you said it just now, it didn't even register in my brain. But yeah, I mean, I think they're really good, solid speakers and deserve to be considered if you're shopping.
Yeah.
Like you said, the Klipsch sort of B&W lineup.
I think if you're on a budget, if you're on a little bit of a tighter budget, I can see Klipsch getting the nod, even if you're stepping up to the 8060 FA. It is cheaper. You're probably going to get a little bit more bang for your buck. You're definitely going to get more bass. But if you're someone that hasn't made up their mind on whether or not I'm a B&W person, a Focal person, a monitor audio person, this gets really tricky. And the one thing that I will say is in the Focal's favor is it doesn't appear to be as picky with associated equipment as B&W and even monitor audio. Monitor audio is easier to drive, hands down. But because it's a lot more dynamic and a lot more excitable, pairing it can be, I don't want to say tricky, but it can be a little bit more of a trial and error. B&W needs power. Same thing with like ELAC. I don't know how to stress this enough. Like a lot of AV receivers just aren't going to get the job done when it comes to B&W, where with Focal, I really felt like we were able to unlock a large portion of its performance with a basic receiver. Yes, things got a little bit better as you moved up market, but there was definitely a point where it was like, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars to wring the performance out of these speakers, which I think it helps to kind of absorb their mildly higher price point compared to other speakers, because you're not going to spend money elsewhere in your system, allowing you to potentially stay on budget. That would be about the only other thing that I would want to call attention to.
Yeah, I think that's really true. While the B&W may be a better overall sounding speaker and, frankly, a better looking speaker,
sure,
it's going to cost you quite a bit more than the Focal, plus be prepared, as Andrew just said, to invest heavily with your power.
Yeah, amplification
source.
Is going to be key.
You cannot get away with a Yamaha basic receiver to power a B&W speaker. It's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
So your overall investment is going to skyrocket at that point.
Yeah.
And then at that point, the Focal becomes quite the budget-friendly option. I mean, no, it's not cheap, but you got to keep things in perspective. And I will say that while I have my my gripes with the shiny bits, I think it will appeal to people looking for a bit of a more modern looking speaker.
Yes.
It's a bit more decor friendly.
Yes.
It comes in a few different color options.
Yes.
Whether you like those or not, that's pretty subjective. But when you're talking about looking at it and the Klipsch, while I think the Klipsch 8000F is a beautiful speaker, it's definitely more traditional, and there's not a lot of options in terms of finishes. So that could push people to the Focal.
Yeah, I mean, I will admit the Focal system is a big system. It really is. Now, we have a fairly large open room, but it looks big. But in this room, because of its finish and the attention to detail, you don't feel like you're living among a bunch of really large speakers. So for a large speaker, it is deceptive how easily it kind of fits into a lifestyle or a real living room environment. So if you're one that doesn't have, say, a dedicated theater, your home theater is also your living room. This is another, like B&W, this is another great option to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. Solid speaker.
Very solid. I love the center.
Oh, the center to me is really the standout of the whole system.
Yeah.
I love the size. It looks great. It sounds great.
Yeah.
Like if you look over Andrew's shoulder right now, we have the Monitor Bronze
Which is a
speakers,
totally different center and smaller and lower price point.
Except for those ridiculous looking transformer type
the Atmos modules?
On the top.
Yeah,
like,
those are weird.
So dumb. Make your freaking Atmos module the same size as the surface it's going to sit on top of. It can't be that difficult. But anyway, back to my point. If you look at the center channel in this system over his shoulder, it's puny
compared to the Focal.
And it just doesn't even, to me, it doesn't, like, scale wise, it doesn't even look cohesive. So I really think Focal they nailed it with that center.
Yeah, it's like I said in the review, it's non-negotiable. If you're building a home theater around these speakers, that is the center to pick, and it's one of the better centers probably on the market. This side of really, really stupid money. So anything else?
Nope, I think we've got it.
All right. Well, that is our review of the Focal Chora 826D Dolby Atmos enabled tower speaker. What did you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. And my question of the day for you is this. What is your favorite speaker for both music and movies? Let's get a list going because you never know. Maybe one of those speakers will end up being reviewed on this channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and be sure to ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Kristi left for you down below, know that that is a great way that you've continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here, and we both thank you all very much. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and that is it for me today. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.